15-second hook, YouTube opening hook. They said the forest whispers only to chosen children, but nobody believed it, until a poor village boy named Obina heard the trees warn him that his own stepmother was planning his death. What he discovered that night would shake the entire village forever. Part 1. The boy everyone ignored. In a small village surrounded by tall palm trees and red earth roads, there lived a boy named Obina. The village was called Umuoka, a quiet place where people woke with the sun and slept when the moon was high. Roosters crowed every morning, women sang while pounding yam, and children ran barefoot across the dusty paths, laughing like little bells in the wind. But Obina never laughed. He was a thin, gentle boy with soft eyes and a heart too big for his fragile body. His father had once been a strong farmer, respected by everyone in the village, but sickness had taken him when Obina was still very young. After his father died, everything changed. His stepmother, Medima, came into his life like a dark cloud. She was beautiful on the outside, with smooth skin and sharp eyes, but her heart was cold like harmattan wind. She treated Obina as if he was a burden instead of a child. While other children ate warm porridge in the morning, Obina would be sent to fetch water from the stream before the sun even rose. "Useless boy," she would shout. "You eat my food but do nothing in this house." Every day, she gave him the hardest work, clearing thorny bushes, carrying heavy firewood, washing clothes in the cold river, and running errands that tired even grown men. And if he slowed down, she would beat the ground with her walking stick and glare at him like a hunting hawk. Still, Obina never spoke back. Inside his heart, he held on to his father's words. "Kindness is strength, my son. One day, your heart will save you." The village people noticed how good Obina was, but nobody dared to interfere. Medima was feared. They said she had strange friends who met her at night. They said owls followed her when she walked in the forest. But no one said anything out loud. One dry afternoon, as the sun painted the sky orange, Obina went to the forest to gather firewood. The forest was quiet in a way that made the air feel heavy. Even the birds seemed to be whispering to each other instead of singing. As he bent down to pick a stick, he heard a soft voice. "Child of patience." He froze. The voice was not loud, but it wasn't like the wind either. Obina looked around, but no one was there. The tall trees stood still, their leaves barely moving. His heart began to beat faster. "Who is there?" he asked in a shaky voice. Again the voice came, clearer this time. "The earth sees your tears. The trees feel your pain." Obina's hands started to tremble. Fear and wonder mixed inside him like river currents. Then suddenly, a small lizard appeared on a rock in front of him. Its eyes were unusually bright, like tiny stars. "Do not be afraid," the lizard said. And though its mouth did not move like a human's, Obina understood the words inside his heart. He dropped the firewood and stepped back slowly. "Animals don't talk," he whispered. "In ordinary times," the lizard replied, "they do not. But you are not living an ordinary life, child." The forest suddenly felt alive. Leaves rustled without wind, branches creaked like old bones, and the air smelled thick with something powerful. The lizard's eyes narrowed gently. "Your stepmother carries darkness in her thoughts. She plans to send you away, not to a place of safety, but to a place of no return." A chill ran down Obina's spine. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice almost breaking. "It means," the lizard answered, "that you must open your eyes before it is too late." Obina stood there, heart racing like a trapped bird. Could it be true? Was Medima planning something worse? That night, when he returned home, he watched his stepmother more carefully. He noticed the way she smiled at him for the first time in many months, and that smile was colder than all her beatings. "Tomorrow," she said gently, placing a hand on his head that made his skin crawl, "you will help me with a very important errand, my son." The way she said "my son" felt like poison wrapped in honey. As Obina lay down on the hard mat that night, he couldn't sleep. The words of the forest echoed in his mind. "She plans to send you away, to a place of no return." Outside, an owl hooted. And far away, deep in the forest, something old and watching shifted in the darkness. Part 2. Obina woke before the rooster crowed that morning. His eyes opened slowly, but his heart was already racing. The forest's warning from the night before felt heavy inside his chest, like a secret too big for a small boy to carry alone. He sat up quietly, careful not to make any sound. The small hut was still dark. The air smelled of ash and dry wood. His stepmother's breathing could be heard from the other side of the mud wall, slow and heavy. He watched the roof, where thin beams of moonlight slipped through the thatch, and whispered in his heart, "Father, help me." Outside, the village stretched calmly, unaware of the storm waiting to fall on one small child. Later that morning, Medima called his name in a soft, almost kind voice. "Obina, come here." That voice was never soft. It never held kindness. The sound of it made the hair on his arms rise. He stepped outside slowly. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with gold and pink. Smoke curled from cooking fires, and women were already singing as they pounded cassava. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Medima sat on a wooden stool, tying her wrapper tightly around her waist. "Today," she said, smiling, "you will help me carry something very precious to my sister in the next village." She pointed to a small, tightly woven basket beside her feet. It was covered with red cloth. Obina's stomach tightened. "What is inside?" he asked carefully. She laughed, but the sound was dry, without warmth. "Are you now the one to ask questions in this house?" He bowed his head quickly. "No, Mama." She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "You will carry this basket and walk past the old forest path. Do not open it. Do not stop to talk to anyone. And whatever you hear, do not look back." Those words hit him like cold rain. Past the old forest path. Everyone in Umuoka knew that forest. Children were warned never to go near it. They said spirits lived there. They said people got lost and never returned. Obina swallowed his fear. "Yes, Mama." Inside his heart, the lizard's warning echoed again. "She plans to send you away, to a place of no return." Before leaving, Obina quietly walked behind the hut to fetch the basket. As he bent over, he felt a gentle tap on his ankle. Tap, tap. He looked down. It was the same small lizard. Its eyes shone brightly in the morning light. "Do not trust the basket," the lizard's voice whispered inside his mind. "The forest spirits have seen what she hides." Obina's fingers trembled as he lifted the basket. "What should I do?" he whispered, barely moving his lips. "Walk the path," the lizard replied. "But listen to the wind, and trust the earth beneath your feet." He took a deep breath and stepped onto the red dirt road that led toward the forbidden forest. Each step felt heavy. As he walked, he began to feel strange things. The wind began to blow, but it felt purposeful, like hands guiding him. The leaves of trees rustled in patterns that felt like words he almost understood. Halfway down the path, he heard a faint sound. Whimpering. He stopped. "Do not stop to talk to anyone," Medima had said. But the sound was not human. It was soft, broken, frightened. He turned slightly and saw a small, injured antelope hidden among the bushes. One of its legs was caught in a rope trap. Its large, gentle eyes met his. "Please," a tiny voice said in his heart. His stepmother's warning battled with his natural kindness. He hesitated, then knelt down. Carefully, he loosened the rope and freed the antelope's leg. The animal stood, shaky, then looked at him with deep gratitude. "You have a kind heart," the antelope's voice said inside his mind. "Kind hearts are protected." It limped into the forest and disappeared. When Obina stood back up, he noticed the basket felt heavier. The air around it felt wrong. By the time he reached the edge of the forbidden forest, the sun had climbed high in the sky. Tall trees blocked out most of the light, turning the path into a tunnel of shadows. His heart beat louder. Just for 1 second, he thought, what happens if I look inside? His hand slowly moved toward the red cloth. He lifted it slightly. Inside the basket was not food, not clothes, not supplies. Inside was a dark object wrapped in black leaves. And from it, a low, angry whisper grew, like a snake breathing. "Blood, blood, blood." Obina's hands dropped in shock. Suddenly, the ground beneath him trembled slightly. The wind stopped. The forest fell completely silent. Every instinct inside him screamed danger. Then he heard a deeper voice, not weak like the lizard, but old, powerful, and carrying the weight of the earth itself. Child of truth, you have opened what should not be carried. The leaves around him began to move without wind. The shadows between the trees stretched longer and darker. The invisible voice spoke again. Your stepmother has made a pact. She means to trade your life for power. Obina's eyes filled with tears. So the lizard was right. She didn't want him gone. She wanted him dead. The basket began to shake slightly in his hands. And from deep inside the forest, something began to walk toward him. Something not meant for human eyes. Part 3. The forest felt like it was breathing. Not like normal air moving in and out, but like a giant, invisible chest rising and falling all around Obina. His fingers trembled as he held the shaking basket. The whispering inside it grew louder, thicker, like 1,000 angry voices fighting to escape. The ground beneath his bare feet felt warm, alive, as if the earth itself was waking up. Put it down, child. The deep voice echoed through the trees. It was not coming from one place. It was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Obina slowly lowered the basket to the ground. The moment it touched the forest floor, the trembling stopped. The whispers inside it fell silent. The air grew heavier. Then the trees in front of him began to move. Not by wind, by will. Their roots shifted like giant fingers pulling themselves from the soil. Their branches bent and twisted, forming a tall, shadowed shape that stood before him. Obina stumbled backward, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. Do not fear, the shape said. As the sunlight pierced deeper through the branches, the shape became clearer. It was tall, made of bark and shadow, with eyes glowing faintly like soft fire. I am the guardian of the forest, it said. I have watched you since you were small. Obina could barely speak. Watched me? Yes, the guardian replied. Every tear that fell from your eyes sank into my roots. Every prayer you whispered traveled through the soil to me. Tears welled up in Obina's eyes. Why? He asked softly. Because hearts like yours are rare, the guardian said. And darkness often seeks to destroy what it cannot become. Obina thought of Medima. Her cold eyes. Her fake smile. My stepmother, she wants to trade my life, he said. The guardian nodded slowly. She has already walked this forest many nights. She has made promises to shadows. She has offered your blood. The words hit him like a knife. What can I do? He asked, his small voice shaking. The guardian bent closer to him. The leaves above whispered softly. You must expose her with truth, it said. But truth alone is never enough. You must gather the strength of the earth, the wind, and the living creatures. The soil at Obina's feet began to shift. From the ground, a small wooden staff slowly pushed upward. Its surface was carved with strange symbols that seemed to move when he blinked. Take this, the guardian said. It is the staff of root and sky. Obina's hands hesitated. Then he reached out and held it. The moment his fingers touched the wood, warmth flowed through his body. Strength filled his arms. Calm filled his heart. You are not alone, the guardian continued. The forest walks with you now. Just then, soft footsteps echoed from behind. Obina turned quickly. The small antelope he had saved earlier stepped out from behind a tree. Its leg was still weak, but it stood tall. It bowed its head slightly. You showed me kindness, its gentle voice said within Obina's mind. I will show you loyalty. Then a bird with bright blue wings landed nearby. And then another. And then another. They formed a quiet circle around him. The forest was gathering around the boy. The guardian's voice lowered. You must return home. She will finish her ritual soon. She will try again. Obina nodded. But remember this, the guardian said softly. Do not fight her with anger. Fight her with truth and courage. The village must see her soul. Obina held the staff tighter. Will I see you again? He asked. The guardian slowly began to fade back into the trees. When your heart calls for help, the earth will answer. Suddenly, the forest fell still. The staff in Obina's hand felt warm and real. The basket lay silent at his feet. Obina carefully wrapped the red cloth around it again. This time, though, he was not afraid. He carried it back, but he did not follow the normal path. The wind guided him through a safer, hidden trail only animals seemed to know. Birds flew ahead. The antelope walked beside him for a while before disappearing back into the bushes. By the time he reached the edge of the village, the sun was starting to fall behind the trees. His stepmother was waiting. Her eyes narrowed when she saw him alive. "You took long," she said sharply. "Did you open the basket?" Obina shook his head gently. "No, Mama." Her lips curled slightly. "Good," she said. "Because tonight, everything will change." Inside his chest, Obina's heart beat strong and steady. He now knew the truth. And soon, everyone else would too. Part 4. That night, the air in the village felt different. The wind didn't move like normal wind. It crawled along the ground, slow and quiet, like it was listening. Even the dogs refused to bark. They hid under huts with their tails tucked between their legs. Obina sat quietly inside the hut, holding the wooden staff close to his chest. The carvings on it glowed faintly whenever he felt afraid, like a soft heartbeat of the earth itself. Medima moved around the hut silently, pretending to prepare food. Her hands moved too carefully, her footsteps too light. She kept glancing toward the doorway and the basket resting in the corner. Her thoughts were loud even without words. Tonight. Everything must happen tonight. She believed Obina did not know. But Obina knew everything. When the moon rose high and full, Medima finally spoke. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Obina," she said. "Come and carry the basket for me. We must go to the shrine." His heart tightened, but his face stayed calm. "Yes, Mama." They walked through the sleeping village together. The sand felt cold beneath their feet. The tall trees leaned closer as they passed, their leaves whispering softly like prayers. Obina felt the wind brush against his ear like fingers. "Be brave." They reached the old shrine at the edge of the forest. It was a place the villagers respected but feared. Broken clay pots surrounded it. Old bones of animals lay scattered. Tall stones stood in a circle, covered in moss and strange markings. Medima stepped into the center of the circle and placed the basket on the ground. "Sit there," she commanded, pointing to a flat stone. Obina obeyed. Inside, fear and strength wrestled together. Medima began to chant. Her voice changed, softer, deeper, darker, like it didn't fully belong to her anymore. She removed the red cloth from the basket and lifted the dark, leaf-wrapped object inside. The air thickened. The ground began to tremble slightly. Shadows gathered around the stones, stretching longer and wider. Medima's eyes rolled back slightly. "Spirits of the hollow earth," she chanted. "I bring you what you asked for, the blood of the unwanted child." Her hand moved toward Obina. His fingers tightened around the wooden staff. Now. The forest wind suddenly blew hard. Leaves rushed into the circle from every direction. The fire Medima had lit flickered wildly. Before she could touch him, Obina stood up. "No." His voice was small, but strong. Medima froze. "What did you say?" she demanded. "I said no," Obina repeated. "Everyone deserves truth. And tonight, the truth will come out." She laughed, but it was a shaky laugh. "You think you are strong now? A foolish boy with a stick." Suddenly, Obina raised the staff and struck it once against the ground. The sound was not ordinary. Thump. It echoed through the soil and stones like thunder trapped underground. The earth beneath the shrine cracked slightly. From the shadows, the forest animals began to appear. Birds landed on the stones. The antelope stepped forward. Even small creatures like lizards and beetles surrounded the circle. Medima's smile disappeared. The wind grew louder, rising into a powerful song. From behind the trees, people started to appear. The villagers. Drawn by the sudden wind, the strange sounds, the unnatural light. They gathered at the edge of the shrine, whispering. "What is happening? Why are the animals here?" Medima turned slowly. Her face twisted. "You useless boy," she hissed, stepping backward. Obina lifted the staff again. "Look inside the basket," he called out to the villagers. His voice shook, but he forced it to grow louder. "See what she wanted to trade for your piece." An old man stepped forward slowly and pulled back the cloth. The dark object inside moved. It whispered. Low, angry, hungry whispers. The villagers gasped. This is a cursed object, the old man said. Medima backed away further. You don't understand, she shouted. I did this for power. For respect. For fear. The wind roared. The ground cracked wider. The stones vibrated. The forest itself seemed to lean closer. Obina's voice rose, filled with tears and courage. She made me suffer. She made me feel small. But I never wished her harm. The staff glowed brighter in his hands. And the earth answered him. Part 5. The wind rose higher, swirling around the stone circle like a living spirit. The ground shook beneath everyone's feet, not violently, but with slow, steady power, like the heartbeat of the earth waking up after a long sleep. Leaves flew through the air, dancing above the shrine, circling Medima like tiny green spirits. She looked around desperately. The villagers stood frozen. They had never seen such power before. They had never seen the forest answer a child. Medima tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. The old man who had looked inside the basket stepped forward slowly, holding a carved staff of his own. This is forbidden, he said, his voice shaking. You invited darkness into our land. Medima dropped to her knees. You don't understand, she cried. I was tired of being nobody. I was tired of fear controlling me. Obina stepped closer. Her eyes met his. For the first time, she did not look powerful. She looked small. You had a choice, Obina said softly. His voice was not angry. It was sad. You could have chosen kindness. Medima lowered her head. The shadows around her thickened. The dark object from the basket began to move on its own, writhing under the black leaves. The old man lifted his staff. Darkness must return to where it belongs. He struck the ground hard. The earth opened slightly beneath the basket. Not like a crack, but like a mouth opening wide. A deep, hollow sound rose from it. The whispering object slid toward the opening, as if pulled by an invisible force. Medima screamed and tried to grab it, but the wind held her back. The dark object slipped into the earth. The ground closed. Silence. The air felt lighter instantly. But justice was not finished. The old man faced the village. What should be done with someone who tries to trade the life of a child? The crowd murmured. Some shouted, exile. Others shouted, let the earth judge her. Medima trembled. Obina stepped forward again. Do not kill her, he said. The villagers turned to him. Even the old man looked surprised. She must live, Obina continued, his voice shaking but full of truth, and live with the truth of what she has done. Let her leave this village, never to return, and never to be welcomed by any forest spirit. The forest wind softened. The animals grew quiet. The guardian's voice echoed faintly through the leaves. A true heart speaks mercy alongside justice. The villagers nodded. It was decided. Medima was driven from the village that very night. Not beaten. Not killed. Only forced to walk away, stripped of all pride, watched by the silent trees she once tried to command. The days that followed felt like healing. The air in the village felt clearer. The birds sang louder. The wind moved gently again. Obina was no longer the boy everyone ignored. The village built him a small hut closer to the center of Umuoka. Women brought him food. Men taught him farming. Children followed him, laughing and asking him to tell stories of the talking forest. But Obina never became proud. Every evening, he sat at the edge of the forest with the wooden staff resting across his knees. One night, the wind moved the leaves in a way he recognized. Soft. Familiar. Guardian, he whispered. The voice came gently through the branches. You have done well, child of truth. Obina smiled softly. I was just brave enough to listen. The voice warmed. And kind enough to forgive. Years passed. Obina grew into a strong young man, known across nearby villages not for anger, but for wisdom. Whenever children were mistreated, he listened. Whenever truth was hidden, he helped reveal it. And deep in the forest, the roots of ancient trees still whispered his name. Because they never forgot the boy who chose courage without cruelty, truth without hatred, and kindness even when his own heart had been hurt. And so, peace returned fully to the village. Not because a boy found power, but because a boy chose to protect justice with a gentle heart. If this story of Obina touched your heart, remember this. No matter how small you feel, your truth has power. Kindness is not weakness, and courage is not loud. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and brave. Just like Obina, you can stand against darkness without losing your light. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Until our next story, stay kind, stay brave, and let your heart lead the way. Herb Sparkles.